Hello crafty friends, it's Jess from jesscrafts.com, and today I have a Christmas card featuring Create a Smile stamps. For most of this card I'll be using the Create a Smile Snowdance kit, and this was an exclusive limited kit, and not a lot of them, well, a decent amount were available, but they are no longer available. It was very popular and sold out quickly, and so a lot of the products you can't get, but some of them are available outside the kit, like the enamel shapes, for instance. And on today's card, I will be using the papers from the kit, the stencil, the stamp set, the enamel shapes. I am starting by die cutting one of the most simple patterns from the paper pack, this red sort of grid-like pattern, and I'm going to be using a stencil with some embossing paste over it. The backs of all of the cards, or all of the pieces of paper, have a simple stripe to them, so there are a lot of simple patterns, but for this particular instance, I wanted something that was pretty solid so that the snowflakes would really stand out. So I'm just using a little bit of painter's tape to tape the stencil down, and then I'm going to take some Dreamweaver's embossing paste and cover the whole stencil. In the past, I've used spackling in lieu of embossing paste because it's quite a bit cheaper and widely available at your local hardware store, and I would definitely still use spackling. I found that, for instance, the spackling was a little bit more solid, whereas the embossing paste kind of was more translucent. The embossing paste, though, however, is a little bit more of a whipped texture, a little bit lighter, fluffier sort of texture, but I think that they're pretty comparable, and while they're not exactly the same, whichever one you had would definitely work, and if you wanted to save some money or weren't able to find embossing paste in your area, some spackling from the hardware store would do great as well. And I'm just taking a metal palette knife. I found that I like the way that the metal palette knife spreads a little bit more than the plastic because it has just a touch less give to it. And I'm going to peel up that stencil. Make sure that you rinse your stencil right away. Recently I accidentally forgot, and then I had to sort of scrape dried embossing paste off of my stencil, and that was no fun. I'm going to take that little scrap of red paper and stamp out Santa because I'm going to be paper piecing part of his hat and his little coat. The Create a Smile papers are a little bit slick, which is nice because it has a good shine to it. However, it can make stamping a little bit more difficult, so you want to make sure that you press up and down and don't wiggle your stamp at all because the slickness of the cardstock could cause an imperfect image. If you wiggle even just a slight bit, it could sort of slide away from you. So just be aware of that. I also found that one side was a little bit slicker than the other. In this case, the pattern that's unique is the slick side, and then the pattern on the back, which is the stripe, was just a little bit more matte. I'm taking this Magical Frames die from Create a Smile, and I'm cutting out a little piece of green paper to mount Santa on. I like that the Magical Frames die, the inside cuts a little stitched square, and so it's great detail on both parts. I'm going to save that little postage bit for another card. To color in Santa's skin, I'm using E00 and E11. I'm creating a little bit of shadow above his beard and below his hat. When I color, I like to reserve some of the area as pure white until I do my final bit of blending, just so that it stays lighter. I find that if you cover your whole area in your lightest color, everything turns out a little bit darker. I'm also going to add some solid colors to his mittens and his boots as they will be sticking out, but then the white beard and the white parts of the hat I'm actually just going to leave pure solid white. Sometimes I would go in with a touch of W marker, but it's such a small area I thought that it was fine to leave it plain. So I'm taking some W7 to give him some little black boots there, and then a G09 to give little green mittens as they will really pop against the red. I have fussy cut out that jacket and the part of the hat, but because this again is a slick sort of paper, you'll want to make sure that your image is completely dry, and it takes just a touch longer to dry. Maybe hit it with the heat gun, because if you start cutting and it's still wet, the ink will come off on your hands and ruin your image. So just be aware of that. I am attaching these with some multimedia mat from Ranger with that fine tip bottle there, I find that's really great for these little tiny pieces. It can be quite a pain to fussy cut out all of these images, but when I consider that I only use a stamp a handful of times, I know that it's not necessarily worth it to have a die. And if you want to save a little bit of effort with fussy cutting, you can always leave a white border, and I find that that takes a little bit less effort. I'm going to use some foam tape to adhere the green panel and turn it on its side so it looks kind of like a diamond instead, just to give a little bit more interest. I want to make sure the card comes off as really fun and whimsical. That's one of my favorite things about Create a Smile stamps, is that fun, whimsical look to all of their stamps. Their characters are really funny, like that little dancing reindeer from this stamp set that's so unique. I've seen a million reindeer stamp sets out there, but never a dancing reindeer. And so that's just one of the best, most admirable things about Create a Smile stamps, is just that uniqueness of their stamps. I decided that I wanted to put this panel on a piece of pattern paper, but I didn't want to waste a whole sheet. And so I thought, well, why not just use that paper that I'd already cut the green panel out of, because when you flip it over, you get one of these really simple neutral backgrounds and the stripes. And that's on the back side of all the pattern papers. I think that that's really awesome to have that simple pattern, because I find that that's what I use most. And so every sheet has two choices, and they're quite a bit different because of that sort of simple solid stripe there. And I found that even though I had cut that green magical frame out quite a bit close to the edge, since I'm only having a little bit of this paper peek out, it worked out well. And I did add some enamel shapes there. I showed that, I did that off camera, but my camera was being really jumpy as I zoomed in too close. And once I have that adhered, that's it for my card today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're interested in more crafting tutorials, including paper piecing, Copic marker coloring, or some other videos featuring Create a Smile stamps, please subscribe to my channel. I'll leave you a link to some of my other creations with Create a Smile stamps so you can check those out. And thanks for watching. Bye.